All right, here we are. I just wrapped up my interview with Becky Mulligan from The Little Beats, The Little Table, and QP. What is it again? Not QP.
LPQ.
LPQ. My dyslexia is flaring up. And man, what a great interview. And we're here to talk about Meez right now. Meez is a platform that has now been recommended to me. I don't know. It first was recommended by Fields Failing from Fields Good Chicken. That was the first time it landed on my radar. It's come up in conversation a few times within the network, people in the network chatting about wanting to learn more about this tool. So I came down here to New York to connect with the Little Beat. Thank you, Joshua Sharkey, the founder of Meez, for making this introduction. Becky was amazing, by the way. I'm going to put that down there for you just a little bit so you can get closer. Can you see? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be doing a quick demo. Right now, Jeff Kornberg is joining me. He's the executive chef for the Little Beat, the Little Table, and QP. I messed it up again. LPQ?
Just to be on the up and up, I am the director of culinary operations for the Little Beat, but I also, at this point, lend a hand to all brands.
Gotcha. So we're going to be kind of, this is really great. This is the first time I've ever connected my computer to a tablet. We're going to demo Meez. He's going to just kind of take us through the functionality, some of the features that he loves the most. So I guess it's going to be like a combination of interview / demo. So starting like as the director of culinary, as the executive chef, what is it about Meez that you love?
So, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of things, but I think
get
the
right
most,
on that, Mike.
I would say the most important things as it's affect our restaurant is the ability to teach people recipes and food with visual aids, and also to not have to do math when doing recipes. It's made training so much easier, and just in terms of like when we used to open up new restaurants, we'd have to go out to markets, or anytime we changed the menu, we'd have to go out to a different market, spend 3 days there. So changing a menu would be a month-long process. Now we do it in 1 day, getting on a call, sharing the screen, reviewing the Meez recipes. So I can't explain the amount of money we've saved there. And at the same time, it's really just like taking you into it. Like, for instance, I'll take you into our cold sides. One, building the recipes and costing the recipes, it's all done in here because this pulls all the information from our purveyor, so we have up-to-date costing. So I could put together a recipe, cost it out within 5 minutes.
Okay. So that's when I was talking to Joshua Sharkey, we kind of identified it as it's one part like just recipe storage, just another part costing, which you just mentioned, and there's also another part e-learning. So what for you, what is it that you love the most about it?
What I love the most about it is like from a development standpoint. So, obviously in these times we're dealing with tight margins, right? And we need to know, like, a lot of times when you're developing a recipe, it's like you come to the idea, you do a tasting, all of a sudden like, okay, we really like that, and you get it, all right, we need to cost this out. How much does it cost? Oh, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Now we know right away we can do this.
So show us, can you kind of show me through what the user interface is like?
Sure.
If you wanted to cost something out?
Exactly. So I'm going to go, I'll go onto one of our beets and lentils kits, for instance. Hopefully I'm not sharing important information, but right now, as you see on the top, there's prep method, which is basically taking you through the ingredients for a batch size.
Okay.
On a side note, what's great when I talk to you about the math is, let's say I only had 100, 200 grams of lentils. Adjust the entire recipe to that, so that like no longer it's like, oh wow, so I can still make this, but I can only make that size.
So it
batch.
knows what the ratio is compared to everything, and no matter what ingredient you manipulate, it will do the same. So like, say if you're like, oh crap, we only have 5 pounds of fill in the blank ingredient, that's our lowest amount, so this is going to be what runs out first. Like, that's what we need to base the rest of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. So then we get into costing here. So now you can get into menu manipulation. Obviously I'm going to switch us back to a 1 times batch, but it basically takes you here, so you could say what your portion size is, and whatever that portion size is, it's going to tell you exactly what it costs. It tells you exactly what each ingredient within that recipe costs you. So let's say you said, okay, clearly these red onions are quite expensive in that dish, or these beets. So I could say, okay, so let's up the lentils, lower the beets. We could do a little menu manipulation to get to the cost we need. And like, the idea is obviously we're going to make sure it still tastes good, but but we know we can, do a little menu engineering here, and which is super easy and super important when it comes to costing out a dish.
Yeah. So another, this is also a creative tool. It's a super powerful, robust costing tool, but it's also a way when we're talking to Joshua, he kind of got this idea. He's like, hey, I had this notebook and I had every recipe, and it was when he was doing charcuterie where, it's time sensitive, it's temperature sensitive, it's humidity sensitive, mm-hmm. and you got to track all these variables to make sure it comes out consistently every time. He lost that notebook. So he lost all that information. So what's also cool about this, from what I understand, is it's cloud-based. So
yes.
So no matter what, if you ever lose, your information, your proprietary information is stored securely someplace, and that you have that for life. It's been called Evernote for chefs, right?
Yeah. And what's great is when you get into creative, what's great is just you basically have a Google Sheets within here where you could share recipes, create ideas, create different versions of that recipe within the same place. So from an R&D sense, it's such a great tool.
So if I wanted to create a new recipe, what would the process look like?
So basically you go to new recipe, and it's as simple as this. You'd name it. So we'll just say duck stuff.
Yeah, and obviously we're not really creating a recipe right now, but I just kind of want the viewers to be able to see, what the user interface looks like.
So now you have a thing called duck stuff. Now, obviously, important in order to get the costing, you want to know the yield. In this, we could just say one each. One each, and then all your options come up. You could choose EA, however you want to do it.
What were the other options that popped up there?
So it's any option you want to choose from. So I could scroll. So because I wrote each, let me delete each, because unit, if you started writing L, it'll bring up large, pound, liter, loaf.
Okay.
It's endless.
That's what I was looking for.
Exactly. And then it's as simple as this. You literally type along. All right, I'm gonna have one each. And I'll write duck, and then all your duck options will come up, right? So you have duck egg, duck livers, whole duck, duck wings, duck neck, duck feet. In this case, I would say duck breast. And so then you return, and it just pops up. You bring in your next ingredient. Now, obviously, we may have never purchased these items before, so the costing would show up. But as soon as you purchase this item and it's mapped into the system, your cost would come up for this dish, and you'd immediately have it.
Okay. What else we need to know as far as some of the cool features that are relative to creating a new menu item or a new recipe that you think are worth showing off before we dive into some of the other variables of the
Well, what's great
value?
is I think when you get into here and you're home and you're looking within ingredients, there's first of all, there's endless ingredients that Meez already has pre-existing on here. But as well as that, there's manipulations to ingredients. So
you don't have to go, if you're doing asparagus, you don't have to go look up, you don't have to go get your copy of the vegetarian flavor Bible and put all the information in there. It knows the nutritional value of asparagus.
Exactly. It's not really just that. It's also when you're talking about manipulating vegetables, it's just there's yields that come into play, and it's just oh man, how much does this onion weigh after I peel it, after I cut off?
Pull it this way. I just want to see it a little more. Just keep going.
Yeah. So okay, well, what's the yield of this onion? Well, there's general yields that are out there already exist, and they're built into the system. So you could already exist onion diced, and it already accounts for the yield of that.
Okay.
So it's it's taking so much of the work that used to go into
this is something that
creating
came
a
up.
recipe.
So not only is it going to impact your costing, your bottom line when it comes to the I think she said that you guys went from 32 to 26% on your costing or your prime cost.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Our food cost.
Food cost. Thank you. But I can only imagine how much time are you saving?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
So
I'll talk when I used to do all this stuff manually or within an Excel document.
Yeah.
And I would literally have to go into the kitchen and do my own yield tests.
Okay.
And like that, I mean, this is saving me weeks of time when it comes to
Weeks of time
menu
per
development.
year or per?
Oh no, per menu change.
Okay. Wow.
You know,
so I mean, I think that's something that needs to be taken. Is labor expense something that's a little bit harder to track the ROI on? It is, but you have to take that into consideration. Like, you're a director of culinary. I don't need you to tell me what your salary is, but I'm assuming it's a little bit more than somebody who's a line staff individual. So like,
I hope so.
Yeah, so like that, like this is efficiencies, systems, processes, tools like this. You need to look at all the angles of how it's going to impact. So far we've talked about the how to create a new menu item. You show us a little bit about how the costing works and how you can manipulate and do menu engineering. What about the e-learning? So now, like, you're uploading all these recipes, and one of the cool things about this tool is like you can recreate an executive chef within this app by putting all their knowledge into a recipe, but you can also do videos where it's like, here's a process for preparation.
Exactly.
So get into that e-learning element.
Yeah, so let me get into one of ours, because I guess it's one thing to talk about is just like how that e-learning just has increased our food quality. So we're not just talking about cost here, it's just like the execution of the recipes has gotten so much better and so much more consistent, and the food that we're serving, I feel like, has gotten so much better.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to my boy Rudy Mick from Mick Consulting, who, for some reason, his quote has stuck with me for so long. And it's a job. The restaurateur's job is to give their team a picture of perfection. The literal picture. So if you can literally have a picture of what the final product done right looks like, that's the aiming point. But now you're actually giving them a picture of perfection for preparation. Not just the final product, but the process.
Right.
Which is so valuable in my opinion.
So once you're in the recipe, you just click to, so obviously, the first thing is you're gathering all your ingredients, you have everything you need here, but now it's like viewing a slideshow. So it's like taking you from start to finish with your recipe step in there.
All right, so we've evaluated all sides, looking for what needs to be removed. The whole idea here is to leave as much on the shoulder as possible. So if you look here, this is a gland. It looks a little bit spongy and it's a little bit more off-color than the rest of the shoulder. So we're just going to cut this out gently by wedging it.
They're gaining,
and removing any blood that we find.
Knowing that we're in a fast casual
This one
world,
happens to have a little bit of hard back fat on it, okay?
Yeah.
The rest of the fat is fine, but this is very, very hard,
and
and it's not going to break down during cooking. So very gently, I'm just going to run along the side of the shoulder and just cut out the fat back, all right? So that becomes trash, and this is all great, valuable meat. This is what's going to be called the copa, closer to the copa of the animal. If there's a piece of fat hanging off like this, that's going to fall off during cooking anyway, we can cut that off as well.
The challenge was getting people used to use
the whole idea is to leave as much fat and as much meat on the animal.
We're capturing the screen on the iPad that you guys have right now. There is an audio component of this that we're not picking up through the screen capture. But keep in mind that we're watching the process, but you can also have audible instruction throughout these videos.
Yeah, so it's like we're taking it step by step, and there's a picture or video along the way, and we have this for every single recipe.
That's amazing. And this gets mounted to the wall in the kitchen.
Yeah, so we usually have 2 or 3 of these mounted into the walls in every kitchen. We've also changed the way we were handling it. Sometimes we're just using regular mounts because we found they need to be a little bit more mobile within the kitchen because people are doing things in different spaces, and there's certain areas like depending on how our kitchens are set up where the hotline is not necessarily where you need the prep to be done. Yeah. So we like to have the other, and we also like to have these for the front of house because we can customers ask about allergens or what ingredients are in those dishes, and you have that at your access right here.
Yeah. So if we did have a customer that came in and they were like, oh, I have these food allergens, the standard operating procedure would be like, I don't have, obviously you want to train your staff to be able to answer these questions. You want them to memorize it. But what's the next, and this is a trick I learned when I was a commercial pilot. You don't necessarily have to know everything. You just need to know where to find the answer. And I feel like this is just such an easy way to expedite the process to get the answer.
Exactly.
And the operations manuals that live underneath the counter that get beat to shit over a 6-month period and you have to replace it. This, you don't have to worry about that with this. So that's another variable of time management that you don't have to worry about.
Oh, and one thing we used to nonstop print recipes out on paper, take the time to laminate them.
The cost of material.
And that would at least disappear a recipe a day that you'd have to reprint, relaminate, and you'd end up with, and then also you'd end up updating a version of a recipe. and then they're still working on that old recipe that they have on that piece of paper.
Yeah, so you update the master and it gets pushed across all platforms.
Exactly. So they only see the final product. It does push them a note. So we always have these notifications in the top right corner, let you know, hey, this was a new thing added, or this recipe was adjusted.
I love this. Is there anything we haven't discussed up to this point, a key feature, a selling point, a benefit that hasn't been expressed up to this point?
Well, I would say like the biggest thing that's helped us get through this time of COVID is, managing our batch size. So basically, you look at your product mix, what you're selling in the restaurant, and you could see directly how many things you're selling. So like, I know exactly how many portions this is because I could change yields from 22 pounds here and change pounds to portions, right?
Okay.
So I know this is 88 portions of pork.
All right.
So I look at my product mix and I'm like, okay, well, we're only selling 20 portions of pork a day. Why are we going to cook off 80 pounds worth of pork?
Why do we need
want
4 days
fresh.
of product? Yeah.
Exactly. So now we've trained them and they know, okay, well, I know every day I'm going through
20.
I'm going through 20 portions. There we go. That's the batch size you should be making.
And you're choosing your most expensive element, the protein, I'm assuming, to be your focal point there.
It is our focal point, but we're doing it with every side. And that's really one of the big reasons why our food cost has dropped to where it is, because
from 32 to 26%.
We're not wasting food.
That's amazing. I'm excited for this. If anybody's watching this video, hope you are too. And I think, if there's anything else you want to share with us, now's the time to get it out. But I think we've kind of met our objective to kind of give my listeners and viewers a sneak peek behind the scenes. This, by the way, we're here because this product has been recommended to us organically. This isn't a pay-to-play situation. I'm out here. This is a very journalistic approach. I'm talking to restaurateurs. I'm pulling back layers. I'm prying, and these are organic recommendations. And just again, I think this will be available if you guys are interested in learning more about this tool. I did interview Joshua Sharkey, the CEO and founder of Meez. And there's a whole history of the company if you want to check that out, if you're still on the fence. But I have a feeling that once you see this, you're going to want to learn more. So thank you so much, Jeff.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This was great. And yeah, you're great. Cool. Well,
awesome.
let's cut it there.